Thanks for joining us. I'm Tony Diaz, the Librotraficante, author of The Tip of the Pyramid, Cultivating Community Cultural Capital. And this is another Nuestra Palabra multi-platform broadcast, but we are still celebrating the 25th anniversary of Nuestra Palabra, Latino Writers Having Their Say, because this show is connected all the way back to April 1998 to our first ever showcase with one of our founding members. And I got to give him a shout out before we tell you the context, what we're doing here, and what we're talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, bringing him back home to H-Town, to his radio show, Alvaro Saar Rios and Moreno, that crazy Max from Texas. Crazy Max from Texas.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Tony. It's so great to see you. Gosh. We were just talking about how, like, from the beginning days of being in the back of that party room at Chapultepec restaurant, and how we would try to get people to come to the events, and I would handwrite the envelopes, and we would lick the envelopes and put the stamps on there and mail them out, and hopefully people would show up for our next event. And that was and then from there eventually getting the radio show, which was great in terms of learning how to be a producer, to be a part of it. I mean, that's what I really loved about being involved in Nuestra Palabra, is in terms of the work that we were doing, in terms of like really connecting with the community. But even for me, it was connecting with people community, but I also was learning how to do things on the fly, like learn how to like produce a radio show on basically there's times where I had to learn how to do it on my own, and but it was
and you couldn't use YouTube to look it up.
No, man. So it was an exciting time to be able to do all that, and so yeah, I'm always grateful to whenever I can reconnect with you. And yeah, man, just from the beginning, I have to say, and I always tell people, like, you were definitely a mentor to me as I didn't even know what an MFA was until I met you. And you definitely inspired me to get an MFA. I mean, and it's kind of awesome to look back at all the people who were involved with Nuestra Palabras and at Nuestra Palabra from the beginning, and those who have MFAs or who have gone and become university professors who continue to speak the gospel of like we gotta get the celebrate the word of the community, and so I'm really grateful for you for that, and awesome that we can reconnect over this production too.
Thank you so much for all of that. And it means so much to me to get to chat, but also to celebrate, because guess what? We were right. We said that people love Latino literature. We said that Houston had talent, and you're proof of that. And in the blink of an eye, do me a favor, tease folks with which production we're celebrating, because you're the guy.
So the production we're celebrating is Carmela Full of Wishes at Main Street Theater, which is pretty exciting. And I think, I should have been a little more prepared for this, but I think this is the sixth production of the play. So it's pretty exciting, and obviously having a play being done in my hometown, to be able to kind of celebrate this and really have this story about this. This very strong Latina who has this vivid imagination, and so I'm really excited about that, and the fact that we have we're here with the director and with also the performer who plays Carmela. I'm glad we're able to connect on that and be able to bring this to everyone.
That's fantastic. And in a little bit, we'll give a nice longer introduction to Laura Moreno, who is the director, and then also Jacqueline Vasquez, who is in the play. You both can wave hi right now. If you're watching first on video, you get to see them wave. Otherwise, you got to go in person to see them. And I'll set the context up. If you happen to be stumbling across us right now, that means you might be watching Nuestra Palabra, Latino Writers Having Their Say first on Facebook page, where we live stream it through StreamYard live. And then our awesome crew of Roxana Guzman and Rodrigo Bravo take the video, and the video might air on fox26houston.com. So maybe you're watching it there. And then Rodrigo will edit the audio and air it on one of our first platforms, 90.1 FM, KPFT, Houston's community station. And Alvaro, we're still community run and operated. So you remember what it's like to pitch. So I'm going to ask you to pitch after me. But hey, I got to remind folks that if you're listening right now, the only reason we can bring you this deep level of community cultural capital and the highest level of art and aesthetics is because we run these radio airwaves. If you think that's the way things should be, please make a donation in the name of Nuestra Palabra, Latino Writers Having Their Say, to KPFT by either visiting kpft.org or calling. I think you still know the number. Alvaro, I'm going to put you on the
No
spot.
way, I don't know the number.
Aaron, I can tell it to you.
713.
If y'all want to old school dial, 713-526-5738. And then you can make a pledge to keep this station on the air for another. The station's actually turned 50 years old. We want to keep it on for another half a century to bring you shows like this. And I'm so happy that we can put this all in context, but there's even more context as well. I do want to mention that Matt de la Peña wrote the book version of this. And of course, we know Matt because as Librotraficantes, we smuggled his work back into Tucson because some of his earlier work formed part of the Mexican-American Studies program in Tucson, Arizona, which was prohibited by right-wing legislators back in 2012. And that forced us to become book smugglers. And we're so happy to have united with the people of Tucson, along with people from across the country, to overturn that law. But I also want you to meet your cousins. So I'm waiting to bring Roxana and Rodrigo back on here because they are your cousins in that now that they produce the multi-platform broadcast, I mentioned all the different stages. You were running the show back when it was in the building on well, actually the building sold, Alvaro. Bad news.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've
the
been
one in the
keeping up.
Montrose area, right?
Yeah, the original building has been sold and torn down.
What?
Torn down.
Man.
411 Lovett, torn down. So that legacy is no more. And I do want Rodrigo to come on to say hi to you and Roxana say hi to you because, hey, Rodrigo, so yeah, this is kind of the early stages of the show when we did it old-fashioned terrestrial and we would meet in person and broadcast it. So, hey, cousin number one, Rodrigo Bravo. Cousin number two, Roxana. This is Alvaro from the past. I think what's very different is that we're not all in the same cities right now. So Rodrigo's actually in San Antonio. Roxana's in Houston, but another part of town. And I'm in Houston, another part of town. Vado, any remembrances from from those old days? Because it's become very different. And in fact, even the technology is different. We take pledges online now mostly.
Oh man, yeah, no, I totally remember all that in terms of being a part of that, and yeah, just like even answering the phones when people were calling in, in terms of when we were doing our pitches. Yeah, definitely bringing in my own CDs, that we would jam to and all that. I wouldn't even doubt I brought in some cassettes for all I know, because they had all the different kind of setup. I remember I think they even had reel to reel there. So they had all this kind of setup there. And so that's what I really loved about, it was cool just to go and I used that. I'm not gonna lie. So as being one of the early producers of this, I used that as an excuse to reach out to various bands, Latino bands, to get their music so we could play it on air. That's how I discovered. They existed for a while, but like Grupo Fantasma out of Austin, Texas, I didn't know who they were, and so I remember reaching out and asking, "Hey, can we, get your, CDs?" And so we can, play them and give them out. So that's definitely how I learned about them. How I learned about like Los Lonely Boys. It was pretty cool to even reach out to like, various Texas bands to kind of get that music. And I tried to, reach out nationally, but I don't know, nobody really responded, but definitely the Texas bands did. So it was awesome. especially, coming out of like, San Antonio and all these various other bands. So it was really cool to be able to do that. So that's what I really enjoyed about being part of this. And I mean, I think that what I find what unique about what this thing is that we've been able to continue to highlight various voices in terms of the Latinx perspective, and I mean these voices that that aren't always highlighted in terms of mainstream media, so it's really cool we got to meet so many different authors and bring them in, from Esmeralda Santiago, from Sandra Cisneros, who I heard you're actually going to be doing a fundraiser with. I mean, just so many different styles of writers who can really connect with so many different audiences. Because I think, I mean, you've always said it, like we as Latinos, we're not a monolith, right? Like we represent so many different voices. And it's really cool to be able to see those different voices and say, this is, we write, we write fiction, we write nonfiction, we write poetry. I mean, yeah, look at Javier Garza, man. I remember when you introduced me to him at the San Antonio festival, when he was selling Jesus Wore a Zoot Suit.
That's right.
That he had printed on his own.
That's right.
And he was
just published his 14th book.
Yeah, he was selling those things like he was selling them out of the trunk of his car, man. Right. And it was just, I mean, it was awesome to be able to see that. Cause I mean, if you go to the bookstores, you would never know that like our voices were there. Like we would see Sandra Cisneros, you might see like an Esmeralda Santiago, but you didn't see some of these other voices. And I think that's what I'm really grateful for in terms of what Nuestra Palabra has done. And for those who listen, if this is important to you, please support Nuestra Palabra through KPFT 90.1. Because like this is just a show, like this is important. These voices are important. And it's definitely vital to our community to be able to hear different voices. I mean, I think this is why I mean, one of the reasons why I took on the Carmela Full of Wishes, specifically because that story is very important. It's an important story that we continue to need to tell and humanize. And that's kind of what I love about that. So
that's awesome. And quick question, Rodrigo. I think because you do so much with music, it's interesting that I think you've continued in that tradition, bringing all these cool different sounds, especially a lot of reggaeton to the show.
Hey.
Well, I mean, we have to stay, current. We got to play what people want to hear as well. But I think really what Alvaro was talking about earlier, I really want to just kind of resonated with me is, back when Nuestra Palabra started, it was about providing platforms, right? Providing a medium, a voice for works that weren't being highlighted. And then it moved on to an actual movement where you're trafficking books that were banned, and it's still going on. Even our own Lupe Mendez had his book banned at one of the independent school districts here in Texas. And so it comes full circle that Matt de la Peña's book was banned in Arizona. And now here we are with Laura Moreno and Jacqueline Vasquez talking about Matt's play being, put on the stage. It's such a nice full circle moment because it just really embodies how our shows like Nuestra Palabra are so critical and so important, and that the work that Alvaro was doing was not in vain. The work that you're doing is not in vain, that we continue to do this because it's not hyperbole when we say that the work we do can pose a threat to people that don't understand that work. And so I'm really thankful for Alvaro for adapting the play, for Laura and directing it, Jacqueline performing and bringing the best to it, because we need these stories out on the stage. We need these books being read and this music to be heard. So really kudos to all three of y'all for continuing, and making sure that we push this legacy, making sure we put work out there.
That's fantastic. I don't want to overwhelm listeners either. We're trying to take 25 years of a movement and squeeze it into one short radio show program, but there's one concrete thing you can do to celebrate that. Welcome another part of the Latino family Main Street Theater, because they're putting on this important play. They're getting Latinx actors, writers on stage, Latinx voices. That's what's up. That's what counts. That's representation. Do me a favor, Alvaro. Introduce our friends and tell people which day they can go see this beautiful play and how they can get more information on it.
Sure. Yeah. So the first thing I want to make sure that thank you very much for joining us, Laura Moreno, the director of Carmela Full of Wishes, as well as Jacqueline Vasquez. Welcome. I mean, both talented individuals, and definitely in terms of your work, in terms of what you're doing as part of what's the work that's being represented in Texas and Houston, which is pretty awesome. So thank you. I mean, please say hello. Please, welcome.
Want to go first, Laura?
I can go first. That's what I was going to find the mute button. Hi, I'm Laura Moreno, and I'm the director of Carmela Full of Wishes. This is actually my second show directing at Main Street. Last year, I directed another one of Matt Della Peña's books that had been turned into a children's show, which was Last Stop on Market Street. So this is my second time with Matt, but my first time with directing one of Alvaro's works.
And my name is Jacqueline Vasquez. I have been given the pleasure to work with Laura as a performer, and I play Carmela in Carmela Full of Wishes. And
very cool.
Yes.
La estrella, la mera mera.
It doesn't like being called Mela, but it's been really nice, and I've been working with Main Street for almost a year now. So it has been a gift to be able to do the show for a young audience and also for families that come to see the show.
Wow. Well, before we even dive into it, I want to make sure that, for those who are interested in even just quickly to see the show, you can go to mainstreettheater.com, where you can look for their Carmela Full of Wishes. That's where you can find tickets. The show is actually running now, and they have weekend performances for the public. I think the weekend performances run all the way until October 21st. So all performances are at Match Houston or Match. I think that's the one thing, the place I know it's called Match, but I don't know if they call it Match Houston because I don't live in Houston anymore. But
that's right. That's kind of new. That's right. That evolved since you left Match. And I never asked for the address because I know where it is. But we should give the address out. Who's got the address handy?
3400 Main Street.
3400 Main Street. From my understanding, it's not that far from the Ensemble Theater,
and right by HCC Central.
HCC Central, where, as I was telling Rodrigo earlier, that's actually where I used to work before I moved away to the Midwest. So that whole area is definitely a piece of my heart. So I'm really. That's pretty cool that this show is going on. But I would love for, either you, let's go with you, Laura. Like, tell me in terms of your, when diving into this, this is your second Matt de la Peña piece, but then also, we also have to acknowledge that you also have a young one. So, tell me, that you're, I don't know, like you want to talk about, in terms of your experience doing this, but also why is this important? Why do you do what you do?
Absolutely. So I'm a classically trained actress, and a lot of the work that I studied in college through both my BFA and my MFA were very Eurocentric work that I didn't always see myself reflected in. And so during my MFA, I kind of switched up things a little bit, and I started to do Tejano studies as well, Tejano theater studies, but specifically also Latinx theater studies, wanting to know more about the Texas experience, but the differentiation between the Latinx experience depending on region and culture and what all of those things meant, because I was also trying to find out who I was in the process as well. And with that, it was just this avalanche of stories that I felt needed to be told. And now a lot of the work that I do really does focus on underrepresented, underserved communities' stories, and how can I find ways to uplift them and to share them and to use my knowledge and my platform as much as I possibly can to tell those stories. So Matt de la Peña's books, I actually had both Market Street and we also have Milo and we have Carmela because I have a 4.5-year-old. And so I don't know.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a good age.
Right.
But I was really learning through this whole process that it wasn't just about telling stories, but it was also about audience cultivation and the importance of taking works and introducing them to young audiences, but making sure that there was representation within those works, that it really did matter what we were showing the next generation of audiences. And so when Market Street was presented to me as an opportunity, I jumped on it. I thought it was an amazing book and I thought it was an amazing play. And I got to work with a whole bunch of BIPOC artists that I had never worked with before. And it just really introduced my love for theater for young audiences. Like I really felt like I have to be here. This is so important. And I was able to take the same kind of attention I would give to a show being put up by a regional theater to the same kind of love and support and honoring of doing a children's show as well. And I think that was like a really big part of like just understanding that it's not just children's shows. It's just as important as something that's going on at a very large regional theater, because this is the next generation of artists. This is the next generation of theater supporters. And they're going to take these stories and they're going to learn something from them and they're going to go on. And so when I was asked to do Carmela, I was floored, because Carmela, what I told Jackie on the first day was, Carmela reminds me so much of my child. And and we actually channeled my little girl a lot throughout the play to kind of figure out like, what would a very young person do at this moment? How do they react to frustrations? How do they, get what they want? And so it was a really lovely experience. And Izzy my child was in the room with us many times, watching and telling us what to do in some cases. But Carmela was just there was something so sweet about just exploring the relationships within a small family. And then also the idea that the acceptance of loss and grief, that we don't always understand, that we experience actually on a daily basis. And how Carmela has this ability to find joy and love and wonder in so many things. And it was such a beautiful reminder of that when we are experiencing something so tragic, that there still is beauty in the world, and that we should look at it through a child's eyes, in the sense of like just the wonder, the love, the admiration for whatever it is. And it was just such a beautiful experience building the story with Jackie and the rest of the cast, the rest of the team. It is a bilingual production. So it is, I think we did get it to be about 60% English, 40% Spanish. And so it was building that world and honoring, well, one of the conversations that we had throughout the process was, Spanish in Texas isn't the same thing as Spanish in California or Spanish in Florida, or, if you're Cubana, or one of our cast members is from Guatemala. And so we were talking about like phrases that we use, and that it's not interchangeable, that they really do mean something differently to every culture. And so it was really examining that and wanting to really build that story and honor that, and honor the audience that would be coming to see the show, and making sure that we made them feel welcomed, and that they felt like they were part of the experience. And so it really was a lovely community collaborative experience, working with a primarily Latinx team building the show. And yeah, I mean, I could talk more, but I'll
Sure.
I'll
Thank
let
you.
Jacqueline
And I'm glad you really talked about the importance of young audience theater, because I think we, I mean, for those who work in, I mean, those of us who continue to work in theater, we always talk about how do you change theater, and this is how you change theater. If kids are able to see themselves on stage and they're able to see different narratives that might not even reflect their experience, but that yet something they can empathize with, like, this is how you change theater. And I really wish, and I hope that, you know, any of the big theaters listening, this is what you need to incorporate into. And also, if you're smart, like in terms of, I mean, I feel like with young audience theater, really what it can be, the potential is to be multi-generational theater. I've been very fortunate that to have, even when I wrote Carmela, I told people, like, you don't have to have kids to go see it and enjoy this show. You can go, I don't care what age you are. And we have had that in the past, from the production in Chicago to Seattle, Milwaukee, Omaha, all the various productions that we've had adults come in the audience and without kids and enjoy it. And so I feel like in terms of, this is me just getting on my soapbox about multi-generational theater and why I feel like this is what the next steps of what theater needs to do. And definitely, and we can approach it in the ways of a young audience, because if you really think about it, I think TYA, if it's done well, it can be done very similar to the way, the animated giants like Pixar and all them. Like, I mean, adults go see that and they don't see it as kids things anymore, you know, because they can cover so many different themes and subjects and all that. And I think there's an interesting way of being able to look at things through a kid's eyes and be able to take on the certain subject. We can take it all on, whatever it is. And this one definitely about a mixed status family, and being able to humanize them, especially in times where we do get to see them demonized. That this is a great way to be able to do that, and that's really what I love about this story. Jacqueline, I want to bring you in this conversation because, I mean, as a we were just talking about, where you went to TCU, you're a performer. This is your second, second year performing with Main Street. I could be wrong. But specifically, like, I mean, tell me about your own experience. I mean, in terms of, I have to say, like, I got into theater, or got into writing because I realized that the opportunities are very limited. And so unless I created them, and I'm saying this is all inspired by my work at Nuestra Palabra, but unless we created our own experiences or things, like, it wasn't just going to happen. And so I'm curious about, in terms of, you're from a different generation, like, where, like, in terms of the opportunities for you, like something like this, like, I mean, how often does this happen for you?
So I remember whenever I saw the audition notice for Carmela Full of Wishes that it was the first time that I ever got the opportunity to speak Spanish in an audition, or to speak, or to have. I even came out of the audition, just the audition process, just literally the audition, talking with my family. I came home and I said, Mom, Dad, that was the first time I was not alone in a room where I was the only Latinx actor.
Wow.
That was the first time where I was able to go, and we all had very similar experiences. We all had very similar stories. We all had similar families or similar, like, dialects, and it felt so cool. 1 second, there's people right behind me. I will be right back. 1 second.
No problem at all. By the way, folks, if you're tuning in, you're listening to Nuestra Palabra, Latino writers having their say on 90.1 FM KPFT. Listener sponsored, hint, hint, hint. And Alvaro Saar Rios is coming back home for a little bit, and we're giving him back his co-hosting duties. Some of the team putting up Carmela Full of Wishes at one of our allies, Main Street Theater. Hey, Jackie, take it away.
I do want to say really quickly, our station, 90.1, it was the first time we ever played a commercial for Menudo Pops. The first official commercial ever played on KPFT. I just want to throw that in there real quick. But yeah, Jacqueline,
Menudo Pops sold out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Please finish your story.
Okay, so I was very, very lucky to be able to be cast. Laura Saar to be able to give me this role to to cultivate and to help. But how, even before the role, how I got into theater was, I don't know, maybe Alvaro, you might know it, but I did Mecca when I was younger.
Of course.
Yes.
Shout out, man. This is all
Yeah.
legacy level
Yeah,
stuff.
I co-produced I self-produced the Crazy Mexican show at Mecca.
There you go.
We needed a space, and it was just like, let's do a space in the community. So yeah, go ahead. Yes, I love Mecca.
So my mom, from a very young age, I was a very sickly kid when I was younger, so I couldn't do a lot of stuff. But the one thing I was allowed to do was I could be indoors, and so my mom put me in dance, and she put me in baile folclórico, and so I started performing through Mecca, and I would stay there during like the summer. I was in the summer camps almost every single year. My goodness, is the building so hot, and it's so hot in there. But that's how I got into a lot of my theater. And so the Latinx art base was always part of my life. It was something that cultivated me into who I am. And then as I got older, I followed a very similar route as Laura. It became very Eurocentric, and it became very white dominant, as they would say. But so I had to figure out my own self through that. If I was like, we talked about this while we were in the process of there was a feeling of you had to be a teeter-totter of different things, like, oh, now I'm Latinx, or no, I'm not Latinx, but and just being allowed to be yourself in a room. And so being able to do this show has given me so much permission to reevaluate who I am as a person and to reevaluate what I want to bring to the table. And so it has truly been a great process, and it's truly been a great, very healing journey, honestly, because we got to talk about things that really, they happen to people I know, and they've happened in my life as well. I have a big brother, but she's a sister in my life. And I had a mom, and who's my mom and my dad, and they're both immigrant parents that came here to the United States. My dad came here when he was 14 with nothing. And so he's a self-made man who now owns an air conditioning company, and he didn't know any English. He only had like $5 and the clothes on his back. And then my mom came here with her family, and she was the first to go to college in her family. And then she also got her master's. So I have family that is hardworking, self-made Latinx people in Houston. So that is what I wanted to bring to the table for myself.
I have to point something out here. This is so wonderful to hear, but I want listeners to understand one thing. All the folks that you're hearing from behind the scenes, including, and I want to remind folks of Roxana Guzman helping with the multi-platform broadcast, Rodrigo Bravo, who's our audio engineer, and so many other things to Nuestra Palabra. All of us are advanced degrees, college degrees, motivated. So it's not that the talent and interest isn't there. It's hard for us to get to, because yes, we're celebrating this. KPFT, which is why this platform has evolved, is over 50 years old. Mecca, which Alice Valdez founded, is over 40 years old. Nuestra Palabra, I guess we're the baby, 25 years. You got Main Street Theater coming on board. And then you've got folks, Alvaro's been working so hard at that across the board. Laura, we hang out too with BIPOC Arts Network Fund as well, which is the new legacy of BIPOC Arts. What is my point? My point is, go experience the play because it's a lot of fun, but do not take for granted that art can be taken away. And if you go to Mecca, we have the Librotraficante underground library there. You can look at the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of the Book there, which has a mural given to the Librotraficantes by the students of Tucson, and that houses some of the prohibited books. Why? Matt's book was banned in Arizona. It can always go away. Didn't mean to bring us down. I tell you what, let's do one more round. And someone listening may think that, you know what, that play's not for me, or they're all fancy people, or do I got to know Spanish? let's go around. We'll go Alvaro, and then Laura, and then we'll let Jackie. Someone out there, you're going to say the magical words that'll get them to go to Main Street Theater to see Carmela Full of Wishes. Alvaro?
I would say you need to see it. It's an American story. I mean, I think it's you can call it. I mean, yes, it is about this mixed status family, but it's an American experience, and I think that's what the American theater, the stage is for, is to be able to tell these tales about the American experience. And this is definitely one of them. And it's definitely one that usually isn't historically told on the American stage. And so definitely something that is worth sharing and seeing for yourself. But also, I mean, if you have young ones, bring them. And if you're just the young at heart, I guarantee you'll be able to connect with some various moments in the piece.
Alvaro Saar Rios, founding member of Nuestra Palabra, proving that he still has the silky pipes. So he can throw it on behind the scenes and in the spotlight. Laura, break it down for us, por favorcito.
Absolutely. Well, even though it's a bilingual show, we do have subtitles above the stage. And so the beautiful part about it is that everything that is said in Spanish is subtitled in English, and everything that is said in English is subtitled in Spanish. And so anybody can follow along with this show and be a part of it. The other, to just add on what Alvaro said about it being an American story, it's a very human story at that. Being able to just navigate life and still be able to find joy and wonder, and the importance and imagination the importance of imagination and the importance of dreaming, being able to hold on to hope, which that's something Carmela holds on the entire time. And we get to see the juxtaposition between her and Big Brother throughout the story of like what it's like when we lose hope, what it's like when we have responsibilities, and what it does for the soul when you're able to dream and just kind of live in the fantasy a little bit of what's possible, and keep and hold on to that hope. And so I feel as though an American story, but also a very human story, one that's very important for us to remember as we navigate life right now. I mean, not everything is great. As we navigate life, to hold on to those things, to hold on to hope.
Beautiful. Thank you, Laura. Thanks for all that you do, holding it down for Latino art and culture here in Houston. And let's close out with the star of the show. I hope everyone will take advantage of seeing her while you can. In a few years, you can't even get close to her, okay? She's from our own hometown. Let's support her. Jackie, close us out.
I would say that the main thing to be able to come see this show is, as Alvaro and as Laura has said, it's a human experience. It's about family, which is very much rooted in the culture, the beautiful culture that we're in. But it's also about the feeling of being able to see yourself on stage. There's every single character that's on that stage, you see in real life. You truly meet in real life. And having a family, whether you're older, younger, middle-aged, trying to get through life, you will be able to witness something that you see on that stage that you will say, that's something I felt, that's something I've seen, that's something I've heard, that's something I've smelled, all the senses. And hopefully bring you some joy and bring you some peace of mind in the time that we are living right now.
Fantastic. We look forward to seeing you on the stage. We wish you continued success. Want to thank everybody who's tuned in, and want to thank, of course, our crew, Rodrigo Bravo, who's our sound engineer, among many other things, Roxana Guzman, who produces our multi-platform broadcast and does so much as well. We've got a huge team, huge leadership effort. Want to thank all of them, including our sponsors. And I'm Tony Diaz, a Librotraficante. Want to let you know that on October 15th, we're having a special event. Sandra Cisneros, author of The House on Mango Street, is coming to Houston for a special fundraiser for Nuestra Palabra. You can go to nuestrapalabra.org to find out more. And of course, we are always here on all the different platforms. Want to thank KPFT, which is one of our original platforms. And one last appeal. If you're tuning in, the only reason that you can hear during prime time in one of the largest cities in America about our art and culture is because KPFT is community sponsored. So please continue that tradition. Please make a donation to KPFT in the name of Nuestra Palabra, Latino Writers Having to Say, by visiting kpft.org or calling 526-5738. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you all for coming to the show. And we look forward to seeing all of you behind the book. Stros! Go Stros! Bye.